Hey, Algebra 2, looks like back on number 17, we're back on quadratics. So let's take a look at this problem. It says, what are the x-intercepts of the graph of that? Okay, so we have to think about, on a graph, what are y-x-intercepts? They would be where they intercept the x-line, here and here, which are also known as the zeros, because here y equals 0. So we can use the quadratic formula for this. Now we could also factor and we could also graph and we could also complete the square, but quadratic formula always works, and this one looks hard to factor, so might as well. Alright, so let's see. What would we get if we used the quadratic formula? Well, A would be 12, B would be -5, be very careful, make sure you put the negative there, and C would be -2. Again, make sure you have the negative, there's a minus in front. So we could plug in x equals -b, -5 is 5, plus or minus the square root of, make sure you put parentheses around this, -5 squared, minus 4 times A times C, oops, blue here, all over 2A. Alright, remember you have to do what's inside the radical first, and all that stuff. Now, I'm not going to go over more examples of quadratic formula. You can always look back. I'm just going to get to the last step. But there's something else that I want to point out. Now, if you are stuck with this quadratic formula for whatever reason, then another thing you can always do is check each one of them out. Plug each one of these in and see which ones equal 0. So I'm going to do that an example of that like for instance with A. So one thing I would do is I would say, okay, we have 12 times x, so if x is 1, like it says here, squared, minus 5 times x, which is 1, minus 2. Let's see if that would make a 0. Okay, order of operations says you have to deal with the squared first, so it's going to be 12 times 1 squared is 1, minus 5 times 1, minus 2. Now we have to do multiplication according to order of operations, so 12 minus 5 minus 2, and 12 minus 5 is 7, minus 2 is 5, so we know that this is not a 0. So we can eliminate A right off the bat. And you can do that with each. Remember that the technique with the calculator, if you have like -1/4, you can do -1 divided by 4. It'll tell you -0.25. And then you press the STO button. And you can store that as alpha A. And then you can just say, 12A squared minus 5A. You don't even have to put parentheses there. Minus 2. So those are all options that you have for checking your answer. You could also graph and find the zeros. Those are all easy ways to find the answer in this one. But I'm going to just finish this quadratic formula up for you. Alright, so you notice I found what was inside the radical first, which is 121. So we have to find the square root of 121 before we can add or subtract from 5. So we're going to have 5. The square root of 121 is 11, so 5 plus or minus 11 divided by 24. Break it into two equations. We have 5 plus 11 divided by 24 and 5 minus 11 divided by 24. Remember, if you're typing that in your calculator, put parentheses around the 5 and 11, so it knows that you have to do that before you divide by 24, since it's all over 24. And then 5 minus 11 divided by 24. And what we'll get is, alright, so you see you get 0.666 continued, no Illuminati thing here, and then negative 0.25. Now you'll notice that the answers are in fractions. Well, that's easy. Oops, all we have to do is convert each of these into fractions. So if you have 2/3 here, do 2 divided by 3, you'll notice that that's 0.66666 continued. So we know that could be it. Oh, and then there's -1 divided by 4 is -0.25. So C is our correct answer. Now remember, you would always want to check your answers by plugging that in to X to make sure that it really is the right answer and that it should get you the zeros.